Welcome to the PR Bunker podcast. In this episode, Don Martelli sits down with Liana Surco to talk about how AI is reshaping communications, PR, and content strategy. Liana shares how she approaches systems building, how she uses AI to amplify creative work, and why audience, relevance, and human judgment still matter most. From smarter media outreach to building tools that save time and improve results, this conversation is packed with practical insights for modern communicators. Let's get into it. Here's your host, Don Martelli.
What's up, folks? Welcome back to the PR Bunker podcast. I'm here with my friend Liana Surco, who I've met through a professional experience years ago. I'm going to geek out of maybe about AI, about comms, about PR, whatever this young lady would like to talk about, Liana. But thanks for joining me down here in the PR Bunker podcast.
Thanks so much for having me, Don. Really excited to be here.
Excellent. So I always start these conversations with the interviewee's journey. I'm a firm believer that we as communicators never plan to be in this job, in this role at this particular time, especially in the way the world works these days. But talk to my audience about how you got into communications and what's your journey been like so far.
Sure, absolutely. So I'll start by saying I have kind of this firmly held belief that communicators have a superpower, and it's that no one would know anything without us. So I've kind of always been fascinated by how people consume information. Growing up and into college, I thought I wanted to be a journalist. I know that's your background, but I eventually realized that that was not the career path that I wanted to pursue. At the same time, I never lost the belief that sharing information matters. And so then I landed at this startup in 2015, 2016 called Graphic. And they were doing something that at the time seemed really, really innovative. Turning or creating data visualizations and then embedding those data viz into online news articles. So again, today that doesn't sound revolutionary, but a decade plus ago, unless you were working in the New York Times newsroom, very few newsrooms had that capability in-house. And so a company like ours kind of prompted some philosophical debates about the value of journalism, the value of communication. On one side, people are saying no one's reading anymore and this data viz is making it worse. And then to me, I thought, well, okay, but if an interactive data viz could keep someone on that article for 2 minutes more, or could help them understand a problem in a new way because they don't consider themselves a reader, then to me, that's not diminishing journalism. That's helping information reach people in a way that they're willing to engage with it. And so that philosophy has kind of stuck with me throughout my career. And to your point, didn't think I'd be here in this role today. Certainly not, when I started there at a tech startup in Santa Barbara, California over a decade ago. So I guess the through line is I don't get particularly nostalgic about the old way of doing things. I'm much more interested in asking, okay, well, people think differently now, they behave differently now, and how do we build for that reality? And that's kind of where I've been noodling for the past couple of years.
And I love that statement because, in today's media environment with AI, which we'll get into in a second, it's probably the worst it will ever be, right? Because the advancements in technology, what's influencing the work that we do is just going to continue to get better. I mean, Fable was here a week or two ago, then it was gone. Now it's back. And why is it back? And you don't know the story because as a former journalist, I'm I want to get into that story. I want to know why, But anyways, before we get into that, what are you doing now?
What I'm doing now is I work as the Director of Strategic Communications at American University's Kogat School of Business. So here in Washington, D.C., leading the strategic communications in-house, but also thinking kind of with this agency mindset. I've been in the D.C. agency world before this, thinking from an in-house mindset. I was in-house at the UN Foundation before this. And so kind of taking all of those various experiences with different types of communication stakeholders, but very mission-oriented goals, taking that experience to a business school that is in and of itself kind of redefining the genre, if you will. I don't know if you have Googled us recently. That could be a huge part of our conversation later. But the goal is, if you have, you've seen that we've kind of embraced AI with everything we've got, and not in the check a box way, but in a how do we really instill in students and infuse in their education this tool that is not going to be a nice to have. It's going to be a must have by the time they graduate into the workforce. And so I am tackling that challenge from a communications perspective across media relations, content and narrative strategy, editorial development. I also lead our creative services team. So we call ourselves a content team. I'm a content person.
Love it.
And that's what I'm doing these days over at American University.
Love it. What guides the philosophy in leveraging the tools to manage your workflow, your team's workflow, and drive towards the goals to which you're responsible for at this particular time? Because you're overseeing not just your own workflow but others. I mean, you can go really edgy on this stuff, and I know from my experience in education, there's some guardrails of things you can and can't do within education, but it sounds like you're all trying to push that envelope because your leadership team and others are all about it. So, what's that stream and the workflow look like for you and the team?
100%. Well, so I'll tell you the honest answer first, which is that I'm a hugely impatient person. And when I'm met with a challenge that I have to face every single day, I'm not the type to sit around and wait for someone else to tell me or give me permission. Well, why don't you go explore that? I just simply get too frustrated. And so I try to find it's not working around a system. It's actually how do we fix what might be broken, right? So I actually love to say, like, I've kind of realized over the years, I don't enjoy doing the same thing every day, but I enjoy finding those broken systems and making them work better.
Mm,
That systems builder mentality has nothing to do with the fact that I'm a communications professional who loves to write. It's kind of a mentality and a philosophy, to your point, that I've applied to the way the entire team works, right? It's also really tough. You're leading a creative team, right? I'm sure that you've seen on the internet all of
oh,
the
yeah,
hoopla and uproar about AI generated creative. As well, there should be. We have to have a thoughtful debate about this. But I don't think that means that my senior designer can't innovate with an AI tool to make her admin workflow better,
yeah, agreed.
have more time to create art. That's how I think people need to be reconsidering this AI adoption question is not how you can use it to change the work you do. It's how you can use it to amplify the work that you do best. And most of the time it's because you don't want to do, your your expense reports, or maybe you don't want to reply to Don Martelli, but
Nobody does.
nobody does. I know. But that's kind of the mentality I'm bringing to a communications function where I'm not dictating, hey, you all have to use this GPT. But what I am saying is, hey, on our Friday morning meeting, come to our next one and tell me about an AI loop you created in your workflow last week. We can
Love
all learn
that.
from that,
Love that.
right?
What's your favorite? I don't want to call it hack, but loop. Like, what's the one thing you've created for your productivity stack to do those things you don't want to do that you get most excited about these days?
It's got to be the press releases, man. It's got to be the
Okay.
press releases
Oh,
built. It was the first loop I built because it was the thing I wanted to expedite. We can all write a press release, a really good one in 15 minutes or less. I wanted one to be generated for me in 30 seconds or less. And that is something that we can achieve by training a model that says, this is our best 10 press releases that achieve this goal, or, right, and kind of iterating on the setup, right? And I
got
think
it.
that that's something that
That's cool.
might discourage people a little bit from getting into this is like, oh, but the setup is so intense. Yeah, it is. Setting anything up is intense. Setting anything up requires hard work. But the goal for me is if I can set something up that decreases my level of effort, but increases my level of output at a quality that matters, then why wouldn't I do that thing?
Yeah, that
And
investment
so
in time is huge.
so
Huge.
imagine, exactly. So imagine every press release, okay, well, 15 minutes turns into 30 seconds. We're not writing press releases anymore. We are getting to use our time more strategically for doing better reporter research, tailoring our pitches to our reporters more thoroughly to their line of interest or what their most recent coverage is. That's the mentality. And I could, we could, if this podcast was 3 hours long, not 30 minutes long, I could kind of explain to you how I'm applying that mentality to every function within the communications function I oversee.
The three guiding principles.
The three guiding principles is if you can do it in 10 minutes or less, build it now.
Love that.
If there's a task that you do every day, build a loop.
Heck yeah.
And always go in with your best original idea.
Love that.
Always go in with your best original
important.
idea.
That I love that because often people think about, I just want to get this thing done and automate it and see it, and, like, set it and forget it.
Yeah,
It's
but
the
what if
time. Yeah.
and then what if in doing that, the set it and
Mm,
forget it, you end up
hmm.
sending an email to your
Correct.
good friend Don Martelli that says that you're, willing to meet with him for dinner on the 9th and you're going to be away on the 9th, right? Like there has to be some level of both like
Hmm.
premium human input but also premium human discretion on the output. And I think that
Agreed.
that's actually, if we could reconsider what I said my three things are, that's got to be at, can we plus one? That's got to be on there.
Yeah, I mean, we're the operators, right? It's the tools can do the work, but it still needs the Geppetto, right? They could be the
100%.
Pinocchios, but you got to be the Geppetto.
Exactly. Exactly.
Love that.
That's
Love
another old
that.
reference.
Yeah, yeah. So let me ask you this: what are the some of the things in your workflow as a communicator and managing this brand and all the work you've done in the past that are still consistent from when you were working for that previous technology company that exists today? In communications, there's a lot of just common things that just will never change. What are those things that are still consistent and relevant for you as a communicator today as it was when you started your career?
Audience is number one. Who are we making this content for? Why are we making this content? How are we going to get that audience to care about it? If that is not the first question that we are considering at the beginning of a kickoff call, then we're probably starting on the wrong foot. I think that no matter what realm you're doing communications in, so again, whether that be in-house in a nonprofit, in-house corporate, in a client services space like agency, you're always thinking about the end audience, the final audience. Who wants to hear this message? Why do they need to hear this message? Right? Because a lot of the times communicators, we're actually telling people things they don't want to hear, but they need to hear, whether that be because our client has a policy deadline coming up, or whether that be because, this regulation has changed and we need to let people know something that they didn't vote for, right? Those things still matter. So the target audience, that final recipient of the thing you make, should always still be the driving factor behind what you make and why you make it. And I think that that's probably the through line that I think is true to comms now, will be true to comms regardless of what technology might change in 10 years, right?
Mm,
So my goal today is still to reach a target audience in the way that they will get my message best. The get my message best part of that has changed drastically, not only in the past 10 years, but in the last 2. But the goal in 10 years from now is probably still going to be, I need this person to get my message.
got it.
I'm going to have to find, as the communicator, the way to get it to them. But that's the exciting part, right? That's the builder the builder mentality
Yeah,
I was talking
yeah.
about.
Hmm. Yeah, it's funny. My follow up question to that was going to be, and this happens to me every single day, almost every single minute. And throughout the course of your day, whether you're on a call with a professor or a colleague, it, does your brain always trigger you to, I should build that? Is this constant like need to build things with these tools? Because I mean, it's like for me, it's addicting. It's like, what
It's
else
an
can I build?
absolute burden, Don.
It is.
Yeah, it's addicting. So it's kind of, you say it's addicting. It's like, I'm kind of obsessed with how, again, how expertise gets distributed. And so my obsession with that is taking me down this AI AEO rabbit hole, right? It's essentially a distribution question. So it's not, right? It's not a matter of everything has changed. It's just, again, that
Mm,
delivery method, that
hmm.
last bit of the puzzle for a content
Hmm.
creator has changed. So yeah,
Yeah,
of course,
big
every
time.
time someone comes with, and I think actually I'll share one tidbit that I think might be a relevant
Awesome.
anecdote.
I was gonna ask you the same kind of thing. Like you and I are probably on the edge of this, and we're geeking out over it. For the person who's like just using ChatGPT for content, they're not even there yet. So walk me through
Totally.
like today. You're in the office today. You got something to promote. You got some news you need to get out there. What's that flow? Walk me through that anecdote.
Yeah, I'll walk you through the anecdote, which is actually about systems change, right? So you're asking me, like, do you just want to build every time you're on a call? And the answer is yes. And the anecdote is this. I'm a communicator. You might imagine a bunch of people in my world are communicators. We like to geek out about this stuff. And I have been really focused on AEO, right? So I love having these conversations with friends. What tools are you using? Oh, you don't have tools? Well, what's your, is that a budget restraint? Well, what are you doing tactic-wise, right? I actually wrote a piece recently about this, about tools versus tactics, and where I think the search race is going to go. Spoiler alert, it's definitely tactics. But I guess the point is, this anecdote is, I was chatting with a communicator who runs a massive website, way larger than mine, runs a massive website, thousands and thousands of pages. They don't have an enterprise AEO tool, and they don't have access to one within their CMS. Okay. The conversation turns to, well, where do we start? we don't have a tool that says these are the top 10 pages you got to focus on. I say, okay, well, what do you want the 10 most visible pages on your website to be? What are the 10 messages that you want your audience to still see? Start there and use some new strategies and some new tactics to be, building out your schema in the back end of that page a little bit better, to be making sure that you're having query fan out in that page so that AI crawlers can better crawl and index it, right? So I think that there's this huge, massive, looming thing in our world that makes people feel like it's just too big. We don't have what we need. Well, no, you have what you need, and you have a final audience, and you have a message you want to get to them. This builder part is how do you get that message to them? It's no
Mhm.
different. It's a
Yeah.
mentality change to make.
Full circle moment right there. Because it's still
Yeah.
about the audience, still about the message. Now, like, I can imagine, because I look at my tech stack and like, I'm a beta guy. I'll dive into any pool head first. I'm like, I'm all in on that. What's your daily stack look like?
I don't think that people should be considering, well, what's the best AI for blank? It's about creating an ecosystem for yourself that works, right?
Bingo.
Because you're
Agreed.
applying the AI to that problem today, but perhaps you want to build an AI that has knowledge of your system to solve a new problem in 3 months. And it's not the same as the one you started with. Well, I
Agreed.
now have a system that understands me, my tone, my style, my phrases I refuse to use, right? Plus a whole bunch of historical knowledge and documents that I have trained it to say, this is my best one. Thanks so much. Now use this as my baseline, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's smart. Very smart. I
So
think there's a baseline you start with. And if you are going into the use of these tools with an agile mind frame and a mindset, I think you nailed it. It's wherever you started is not where you're going to end up, and tomorrow will be better because if you goes back to your first point about spending the time to adjust, to teach, to learn, so the outputs get to the where you normally would take them if you were doing them manually. But you're right. I mean, what the tools we're using now may
absolutely.
change in a month or two or three, but it's the ability to be able to pivot and be agile with your system use, I think is really important.
And I think that that's another place where communicators can really excel in this space, right? I think that you have a bunch of people saying, oh, but like, oh, Liana, she just does words for a living. Sure. That's the output you see. It's not the fundamental way I spend my time, right? It's not the only thing that matters. And I think that it is really about building these systems that can tackle tomorrow's problem.
Yeah.
And
If-
yeah,
So let me ask you this. So you're a young Liana coming out of undergrad school, and when you're going to be an aspiring public relations person. Where do you start? As you're hearing AI and language and all these tools, and you think about media, and PR is not PR what it once it was when you and I started, but like if you are that young Liana, what are you telling her about the space now? Where to lean in?
pay attention. Pay attention and like always be paying attention to people. This is the one that everyone knows. Pay attention to people who are smarter than you. Pay attention to people who are doing things you don't understand and then try to figure out what they're doing, what motivated them and how did they do it. I just think that there is this
Yep.
mentality that like starting out, you have to just know. No one just knows. I didn't just know. You didn't just know. I just watched people who were really, really good at this thing. And then, because I am the type of person who will talk to a brick wall, I went up to most of those people and I asked them to tell me everything about themselves. And then I took the bits and pieces of those conversations that I thought could help me develop and kind of focused on, okay, well, is that a skill set that I need to develop? Is that a relationship I need to keep? Is that a tool I need to learn how to use? Is this a space I need to just be paying attention to? Right? In public affairs in particular, you're always paying attention to the space because one of your clients definitely has a bill that's going, to vote tomorrow. But again, it doesn't have to be thinking less about client services, even just about if I am the type of person who wants to make impact through communications on issues that matter. What I really need to be doing right now is paying attention to how to scale my productivity and give people an output from a 21-year-old that's as sophisticated as an output from 31-year-old Liana. Unfortunately, that is the expectation for a lot of young people right now. It's to have an output that is much greater than their experience might dictate. But the ways to accomplish that are out there. You just have to have the right mindset. That's the problem to solve. It's a different problem than the one I had to solve when I was breaking in, but that's just the problem to solve. And I think that we're at this place that AI can really, really help, or it can hinder you, because if you're using it willy nilly, if you're using it without your own like moral compass, one, but actual work parameters too, it's not going to save you time and it's not going to produce something better for you. And so I think it's really just about like all of the stuff that would be true 10 years ago. Be thoughtful, be intentional, learn from people who are smarter than you,
Love that.
and then use the tools that are now in our ecosystem to amplify your own intelligence.
Yeah,
That's what
spot
I
on.
think.
Spot on with that. I think you touched upon this a couple of times. The one other common thing amongst all of this is, brands wanting to talk to people, and that's just relationship building. And you kind of danced around a little bit, but when it comes to relationships and running a business, and while you work for a well-established, well-known university, you're still running a business unit within a university. It's still
Absolutely.
about, as communicators, the value of relationships from a networking perspective, and getting to know the faculty, getting to know your staff, getting to know your partners, and you and I still being connected after all this time, right? From a networking perspective, because as you know, I talk a lot about networking on my Substack and elsewhere. I mean, as a communicator, we're naturally gravitated to having conversations with people, but what's your networking strategy to continue to learn, to continue to meet people, and get in rooms where other smarter people are there? What's your networking strategy these days when it's always on? We get all these tools available to us, but at the core of the people part of the whole process, what's your networking strategy look like?
Talk to interesting people. So it sounds so simple, but the answer is I am chatting with you today because I posted something on LinkedIn that you thought was interesting.
Yeah, it's a good
And then we
post.
had a conversation about it. That's my approach to networking. If I am following someone on LinkedIn that is in a space that I think is really unique, or I have heard from a friend in the space that they're doing something totally different. Well, maybe I don't know them yet, and maybe I can't reach out via email to say, "Hey, let's get coffee." But I can read what they're putting out there. I can respond to them and say, "This is the part that stuck out to me. Do you want to find 30 minutes to just noodle on that?" Like, that's my approach to networking today, is to find the people who are doing interesting things. If I finish reading an article and I'm like, I want to build that. Well, how did Don build it? Why did he build it? Maybe I don't want to build that exact same product, but I'm inspired by the approach, right? And so,
Mhm.
again, I do think, and this is where personality comes into play, right? I can't imagine it would be as easy for someone who is a little bit less forthcoming or forthright or willing to shake that random person's hand.
The introverts in the room here. We know they're here. We know you're creeping in, listen to the
They're,
podcast. The
you're
introverts are
you're
out there.
listening to the pod, but they're not
I
even
get it.
introverts. It's like, right?
No,
So like
yeah,
there are people
valid.
who simply, right? It's not that they're introverts, it's simply that it's not their way. They're just not going to introduce themselves to someone random face to face. That's okay. You don't have to do that. What you have to do is say, "Hey, this thing you said was really interesting to me, and I actually have something to share too."
Yeah, it's a good hook.
Right? So
Yeah.
because then, and I've always had this mentality. It's like, what's the worst that someone could do? Say no.
Yeah. I mean,
Truly,
in PR,
truly
we
and
get
honestly,
rejected.
we get
In
rejected.
PR,
So
we
that's the
all the
other
time,
thing.
we get rejected by reporters.
This is where, right? This is where communicators again have a superpower. Like, the rejection that people fear is the baseline. That is how I wake up every morning.
Yeah,
I
valid.
go into work knowing that half of the stuff that I have thought very dutifully about, that I have created, crafted, might not hit. And that's
Mhm.
okay,
Mhm.
because the ones that do is where the lift comes, right? And we haven't
Valid.
even talked about kind of like earn to owned and how we're increasing visibility. Maybe that's a pod
Well,
part two.
no, like as you're talking about, we talked about your background, system build, the work. For me, we get to this part of the podcast, it's like, what's next? And clearly, we, as public relations professionals, it was traditionally dealing with the media, right? But as somebody who oversees that massive department for your fairly large, reputable school, you are managing a newsroom of sorts. So, what's that mix look like for channels? How is AI influencing the
Totally.
whole thing? How are you the architect and the operator of this entity and business unit within the school using these tools? So kind of full circle, how we kind of bring this all together.
Absolutely. So this is where I want to talk not about how I'm using the tools, but how I'm developing a strategy for what the tools are doing for the consumer. Okay. So we are all now optimizing to show up in that little 2-line AI summary that shows up when someone Googles something, or when someone's opening up ChatGPT, you want to be that first reference bullet point. Well, how do you do that? That's super tactical, but let's talk about the mix. For me, I'm constantly thinking about balancing volume with repute. And what I mean by that is there is still absolute value in having a ton of media hits in smaller outlets, ones where maybe not going to have a whole ton of readers, but you have volume to say, okay, this brand is showing up regularly. Then you have repute where you say, this brand, maybe I got one hit in the Wall Street Journal. That's phenomenal, right? That one Wall Street Journal hit, though, that's ephemeral. That's gone in the next news cycle. So you have to balance knowing that that one top tier hit might hold as much weight as 10 smaller hits, and balance how you approach that and do both. You can do it all, Don. You have to do it all. And I think that that's where people might be missing the mark, is leaning all in on one or the other. If you are a PR professional who's mostly targeting nationals, you are missing out on a huge opportunity to get your expert's name and an attribution to your brand in a local journal that might get syndicated, right? That's the mentality. And so to take that a step further, I'm thinking not only about my media mix and, who we're pitching, how and why, but what are we going to do with that hit after it comes out? Because let's say I got that hit in the Wall Street Journal and I absolutely want to celebrate that. The hit alone, I could post it to LinkedIn. I could share it with my network. It's not really that important. But if I develop a piece of owned media, right? Something that's on my domain, my brand's website, that is structured for AI to crawl and index. And then you're just using some of our traditional SEO tactics of circular linking and, things like that. But you're tying it to an AEO framework that says the way people are going to find out about this Wall Street Journal hit is not because they're reading the Wall Street Journal. They're going to find out about this faculty member being quoted in the Wall Street Journal because they're looking for something themselves, and our expertise is cited or referenced. That's the gameplay for us right now. And I'm very quick to say that nothing in this world is static. So by the time you publish this conversation, the playbook might, I might be
you're
playbook.
Right. Yep. Every single day, AI and these tools get worse, right? And just the demand, the volume of information, how it's being served, where it's being served, who's cited, who's not. It's just this river of information.
Well, so how do we avoid the slop, right? Consumers at this point want to avoid the slop. Great. Give them really tight, structured, owned content that is going to then be referenced alongside all of those media hits, because AI machines do not remember moments in time. An AI machine is not going to remember that one hit in the Wall Street Journal. However, if you have created an ecosystem of credibility, right, across those smaller hits, right, those small publications no one really reads, maybe a couple of podcast hits where you get to put the entire transcript on your website, you have now created an ecosystem that AI can read and understand as like, they're actually all over the place. So that's the mix. Now you have to figure out, everyone has to figure out, what is that mix for my brand?
Yep.
Right?
And my clients' brands and everything else.
Your clients' brands or whoever it might be. But I think, again, everything we're talking about today is about a mentality and an approach to communications, not actually the way to do communication.
Correct. It's never about the tactics.
It's really never. It's not about, and it's like, you have chat, I have Claude. Okay. That does not dictate the final outcome. What really dictates the final outcome is, again, I'm going to go back to my point number 3 from earlier. Go in with your best original idea. That's what dictates a positive outcome in this environment.
Agreed.
You go in with your best original idea, then you use AI to amplify that already really good idea.
Yeah. Love it. What's your next big idea? What do you got cooking now that's like kind of in the lab? That's in the lab. What in the lab that's like simmering?
So a couple of months ago, and this again came from, I got very frustrated with a problem that I was facing every single day. A couple of months ago, I developed an app in Google AI Studio for media engagement lead scoring, essentially, taking all of our historical pitch data and mapping that to a heat grade that tells us, okay, over the course of time, over the course of all of our pitches on XYZ subjects, this person at this outlet responded in this way. And that intelligence allows us to decide, well, maybe actually I really want this targeted pitch. I'm going to tailor it really, really closely to this reporter because they responded to us 2 months ago and said, love the topic, just not the right time. Well, I've been working on this app to surface all of that historical data in an interactive dashboard where now when I want to reach out to a small subset of my reporter database, I can simply download my media list based on the parameters I want to target. And
Nice.
so everything I just described to you is currently a MVP. I mean, that thing is minimum viable. Like it functions, right? It functions, it retains data, but that's what I want. I mean, summertime in higher ed is the time to noodle, to play,
Build.
to tinker, to
Yeah.
build,
Get in
right?
there.
To
Absolutely.
think, experiment, brainstorm. And, in the day-to-day work, I'm using the app to cut down on how much time we're spending developing those media lists. But there's a layer deeper that I'd like to take that and not
Love it.
only have it spit that out, but tell me what I should do,
Yeah.
right?
Then you can
Not
then you can
only,
sell that to every agency in the country, in the world, and make millions
Don,
of
from
dollars.
your mouth
Millions of dollars.
to someone's ears.
Yeah, come here as an investor. I'm in on that.
Right on.
Love that. Good stuff. Good stuff. I mean, we could geek out about this all the time.
I
If
was
people
going to say
wanted to,
that one requires like a
it
separate
does.
convo.
Well, I mean, that goes from you and I putting a press release on Business Wire or PR Newswire or into a fax machine to like, it's the same process. It's just delivering differently, but it's so unique, customized, personalized, relevant. Because media right now is about. I love the story, Liana, but it's not now. It might be in 3 months. I got 30
Exactly.
seconds to decide whether I should be writing about this now or tomorrow or never.
And am I going to remember because I'm pitching all the
No way.
time that
No
so
way.
and so from X outlet 2 months ago said that? Of course not. And is it a waste of my time to go back through my inbox or have to go back through Muck Rack and figure it out?
Yep.
Of course it is.
1,000%.
So all of this is done. Again, it's saved time, but it's not just saving time. What do I get to do with the time I'm getting back? I'm
Yeah.
getting to build stronger relationships with
Yep.
reporters. I'm getting to build stronger strategies for outreach, depending on what's going on in the world around me. Because, yeah, those 30 minutes I saved this morning can amount to a new coffee chat or a new podcast opportunity for a faculty member. So, yeah, I'm going to take all of
Yeah,
that
I
time
love
back
that.
and do something meaningful with it.
Not that everything we produce doesn't have value, but for me, I talk about this time I'm saving in the things I've created to operate parts of the business allows me to be in higher level value moments. As you pointed
Exactly.
out, a coffee with the reporter, time with the kids, time away, doing things that just would take out a massive time suck to allow me to focus on people, my relationships, and the quality to which I'm delivering things I need to deliver for my variety of clients, whether it be my bunker
Exactly.
clients, my small business clients, the alignable stuff. So it's incredible. And you and I talked about it before we started recording. Like today's the worst day AI was ever going to be. And imagine in 10 years from now when you've got, you're doing your thing, I'm doing my thing, where this thing entirely is going to go. But it's still going to be about people, about a brand or company communicating to an audience and just
That's exactly
all the
right.
cool shit we're going to build around it, which I think we're really, really excited about. It's good stuff. So when people so you mentioned LinkedIn a few times, and that's where that article is and lives. I'm sure you're publishing there regularly. Can people find you in there? And what's that look like? How can they find you there?
Yeah, absolutely. You could find me. I have a pretty unique name spelled pretty uniquely. It's Liana Serco. Definitely find me on LinkedIn because I think that's the best
Awesome.
way, again, for people in your network
Yeah.
who, maybe they're doing the coolest shit and I just don't know them yet.
Same. Where
So
else are you publishing it all? If you are content.
right now I'm focused on publishing on LinkedIn, but I think that I might expand beyond that if I think I have a content engine, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we'll see where the next couple of
if you
months
haven't,
take me.
I'm sure you're going to build it because that's where your brain is at.
That's where, right, exactly. So in my 25th hour of every day, I'm sure maybe that's the next thing. But I do think that the main focus for me is, again, talking to people who are doing interesting stuff
Yep.
and then building my own solutions around that. So I'm
Love it.
really, really jazzed to be in the space. I'm really grateful that you had me on the podcast. And yeah, definitely have folks reach out on LinkedIn and let's get connected. Let's nerd out.
1,000%. I would highly recommend you all do so because that's how she and I got reconnected. Leon, it's been a pleasure. Thanks for joining the PR Bunker podcast. I can't wait to see what else you build. And I'm foaming at the mouth on that media application because I've got something like that too. There's a couple things you mentioned. I'm like, oh shit, I forgot about that. I should add that in there. So I think the other lesson I learned today was, while we are all communicators and doing different things, it's this community of communicators that could help each other provide ideas, builds, because every idea we've ever come with is a ripoff of something else that's been built on, right? And this is the mode we're in these days, to be operators and communicators. So appreciate you sharing the insights, teaching this old dog a couple new things. Pleasure to have you on the podcast.
Thanks so much, Don. I'll talk to you soon.
Excellent.
That's the PR Bunker podcast, hosted by Don Martelli. Here's the thesis. Reputation is the operating system for your business. It's the one asset that works while you sleep. When you need to defend it, repair it, or build it, start at prbunker.com. And for a sharper way to build the relationships that actually get you to yes, subscribe to the Anti-Networking Playbook on Substack. New every week. When reputation decides the outcome, be ready. We'll see you next time, and remember, stay locked in.